On the fateful morning of February 24th, 1986, as the sun began to rise over the city of Los Angeles, casting a soft golden light across the urban landscape, the tranquility of a quiet condominium was shattered by tragedy. Inside, a promising young nurse named Sherri Rasmussen lay lifeless on the floor of her living room, a scene that would haunt the city for years to come. Bloodied, beaten, and shot, Sherri's shocking demise marked a brutal end to what had been a bright and hopeful life. She was not just any nurse. She was an accomplished critical care specialist, known for her dedication and compassion, a beloved daughter cherished by her family, and a newlywed who had embarked on what should have been the joyous journey of marriage. For decades following her murder, authorities would misclassify this horrific act as a senseless home invasion, brushing aside the deeper and more sinister elements surrounding the case. Yet, buried beneath the surface of this tragedy was a bewildering secret, a meticulously woven cover-up lurking in plain sight, pointing to an unimaginable truth. Shockingly, the investigation would reveal that the perpetrator might be someone who wore a badge, adding layers of complexity to an already convoluted narrative. This is not just a story of a murder, but rather a gripping tale of deception, intricate forensic science, and DNA evidence that would eventually come to light, challenging the very foundations of trust within the Los Angeles Police Department. As we dive deeper into this haunting saga, we will uncover the shocking twists and turns that left a city reeling and revealed a darker side of justice that many would prefer to keep hidden. Sherri Ray Rasmussen was 29 years old, tall, elegant, and driven. She was a standout in her field, director of critical care nursing at Glendale Adventist Medical Center. Born in 1957, she had always been ahead of her time. By her late 20s, she was already mentoring nursing students, consulting with hospitals, and leading ICU staff with poise and confidence. In 1985, she married John Rutan, a fellow UCLA graduate. By all accounts, they were the golden couple, attractive, educated, and newly in love. But unknown to Sherri, someone from John's past wasn't ready to let go. February 24th, 1986, started as a seemingly ordinary day, yet it would soon unfurl into a chilling chapter of tragedy that would haunt those connected to it. John Rutan, an everyday man with responsibility to uphold, set off for work early in the morning, unknowing that the events of the day would forever change his life. Meanwhile, his partner, Sherri, feeling unwell and fatigued, decided to stay home, finding solace in the cozy confines of their Van Nuys condo. With John away, the quiet of the day enveloped her, creating an illusion of safety and normalcy. As evening descended, bringing with it the shadows of night, John returned home, expecting the familiar comfort of his sanctuary. Instead, he was met with a scene that would be etched in his memory forever, a horrific sight that no one should ever have to witness. There lay Sherri's lifeless body sprawled on the living room floor, a tragic tableau of violence that contrasted starkly with the warmth of their shared life. Her once vibrant spirit had been brutally extinguished. She had suffered unimaginable violence, having been beaten with a blunt object, bitten, and shot 3 times in the chest. The cruel horror of it all was compounded by the fact that one bullet had been fired at point-blank range after she had already collapsed, a chilling testament to the brutality of her ending. The condo, which had been a symbol of their dreams and a place filled with shared laughter was now in complete disarray, a chaotic reflection of a life interrupted. A broken vase lay shattered on the floor, the remnants of a simple object transformed into a harrowing reminder of the struggle that had taken place. The sliding door was pried open, indicating an invasion of their precious space, and to John's dismay, Sherri's beloved BMW was missing, adding another layer of distress to the unfolding nightmare. The LAPD quickly arrived at the scene, their initial investigation leading them to conclude that this was a botched burglary. They filed a case under the category of home invasion gone wrong, neatly categorizing the tragedy as a crime fueled by desperation. However, as the facts began to emerge and settle like a dust cloud, something didn't sit right with Sherri's parents. They couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at them. The circumstances surrounding their daughter's death felt tangled and complex, raising questions that lingered long after the police's initial conclusions. They sensed the shadows of deeper truths hidden beneath the surface, urging them to seek clarity in a situation rife with uncertainty. The battle for justice hadn't ended. It had only just begun. At the front door of the Rasmussen residence, there was a perplexing absence of any signs that might suggest forced entry. The lock appeared to be entirely intact, and no physical damage was evident, leading many to wonder how the intruder could have gained access without leaving a trace. Even more bewildering was the fact that no one in the neighborhood, usually bustling with activity, had heard the distinct sound of an alarm going off, which was surprising given the typically vigilant nature of the local community. As the investigation unfolded, the forensic team was only able to uncover a limited amount of forensic evidence. The only fingerprints collected belonged to the couple themselves, along with a few vague smudges that didn't belong to the intruder. What made the situation even more peculiar was the lack of valuable items taken from the home. The couple's jewelry, sparkling and clearly visible, remained untouched, glistening in their customary spots as if nothing had happened. High-end electronics, which could have easily tempted a thief, were still securely in their places, undisturbed and untouched by outside hands. In an unusual twist, the BMW that had been reported missing soon after the burglary was discovered 2 weeks later. It was found abandoned in a neighborhood that was markedly different from the Rasmussen area and, quite frankly, didn't match the narrative that was being constructed around the crime. Amidst this chaos, Sherri, one half of the couple affected by the burglary, was found to have defensive wounds on her arms and hands. These injuries indicated that she had been involved in a prolonged struggle, a detail that felt out of place in a scenario typically associated with a simple break-in. This was not the behavior one would expect from a victim caught off guard, adding layers of complexity to the situation. Despite these irregularities, detectives were adamant in their beliefs, maintaining that 2 Latino men were likely behind a series of break-ins occurring in the area. They firmly placed the Rasmussen case into their growing list of similar incidents, despite the glaring absence of any concrete evidence directly linking these suspects to the crime, raising questions about the direction of their investigation and the nature of their conclusions. Sherri's father, Nels Rasmussen, immediately raised red flags, instilling a sense of urgency and concern that echoed throughout the investigation. With a heavy heart, He recounted to the investigators unsettling details about a woman who had been haunting Sherri's life, a female LAPD officer who once shared a romantic relationship with John, the man at the center of the case. That woman, whose presence loomed over them like a shadow, was Stephanie Lazarus. Nels firmly stated that his daughter had repeatedly expressed her growing unease about Lazarus's unwelcome appearances in her life, detailing instances that left him disturbed. He recounted how Sherri had confided in him about the officer showing up uninvited, a scenario that unfolded not just once, but multiple times. First, there was the unsettling visit to her office, where out of nowhere Lazarus appeared, leaving Sherri feeling cornered and anxious. Then there was the equally troubling incident at their condo, which shook Nels to the core, as well as another alarming moment when Sherri discovered Lazarus intruding in her own home, a violation that shattered her sense of safety. Despite Sherri's heartfelt warnings and pleas for help, these serious concerns were unfortunately brushed aside by the very authorities meant to protect them. No official report was ever documented, and the focus of the investigation stubbornly remained on the burglary theory, leaving Nels feeling increasingly frustrated and helpless. To him, it seemed like the LAPD was choosing to shield one of their own, prioritizing loyalty over justice, which only intensified his worries about his daughter's safety and the integrity of the investigation. For over 2 decades, Sherri's case sat unsolved. No arrests, no new leads, just silence. But then, in 2004, the case was reopened as part of a routine cold case review. A new generation of detectives looked at the evidence with fresh eyes and new technology. The DNA swab from the bite mark on Sherri's arm had never been tested. In 2005, it was submitted for DNA analysis. The results were shocking. The killer was a woman. This remarkable finding contradicted the long-standing and widely accepted theory that male burglars were primarily responsible for these crimes. With this new evidence in hand, detectives made the critical decision to refocus their investigation on the original suspects, carefully revisiting prior leads that had once seemed inconsequential. Among those names, one in particular began to resonate with unsettling clarity: Stephanie Lazarus. Interestingly, at the time, Lazarus had established herself as a respected detective within the Los Angeles Police Department, expertly navigating the complex world of art theft investigations. Her reputation for dedication and skill made her a valuable asset to the department. By the year 2009, she was still actively contributing to the force, completely unaware that the shadows of the past were stealthily closing in around her. To prevent any possibility of alerting her to the renewed investigation, the Internal Affairs Unit took great care to handle the operation with an extraordinary level of secrecy. They meticulously followed Lazarus, monitoring her daily movements and interactions. Each step she took was documented with attention to detail, as detectives knew that even the smallest slip could jeopardize their mission. In a carefully orchestrated sting operation, the investigative team managed to retrieve a seemingly innocuous item, a discarded cup from a Starbucks she frequented. It appeared routine, but this cup would become a pivotal piece of evidence. Through advanced DNA testing, they established a match, revealing that the bite mark discovered on Sherri's body had indeed been made by none other than Stephanie Lazarus herself. This revelation marked a significant turning point in the case, setting the stage for a dramatic unfolding of events. On the fateful day of June 5, 2009, Stephanie Lazarus was led into an LAPD interview room, a seemingly routine encounter that she initially believed was part of her assistance with an internal department investigation. With a sense of purpose, she entered the room, ready to contribute her insights. However, as the questioning progressed, it became increasingly evident that the inquiries were delving into far murkier waters than she had anticipated. The tone of the detective shifted, and the nature of the questions began to unravel, focusing on troubling and deeply personal matters that caused dread to settle in her stomach. Despite her fervent denials of any wrongdoing, asserting her innocence with confidence, it was evident that the detectives had a different narrative in mind. Unfortunately, it was too late for her to extricate herself from the situation. The grip of law enforcement was tightening around her, and she was arrested that very day for the shocking and serious charge of the murder of Sherri Rasmussen, a case that had lain dormant for far too long. Fast forward to the year 2012, when the highly anticipated trial against Lazarus commenced, capturing the attention of the public and the media alike. The prosecution took center stage, meticulously constructing a narrative that emphasized a motive steeped in jealousy and obsessive behavior, highlighting how Lazarus, who had once harbored romantic feelings for John, had been unable to let go and move on from their past relationship. On the other hand, her defense team stood firmly on the assertion that there was a complete lack of physical evidence tying her to the crime scene, apart from circumstantial connections, including a singular bite mark. However, the jury, after carefully weighing the evidence and enduring 3 weeks of emotional and often gripping testimony, wrestled with their decision for a couple of days during their deliberation. Ultimately, they reached a verdict that shocked many observers. Stephanie Lazarus was found guilty of first-degree murder, a conclusion that solidified the prosecutor's claims and brought a sense of closure to a harrowing case. The judge sentenced her to a substantial prison term of 27 years